We are live. This is the market update. War. Is it a problem or is it even war? Well, of course it's war, but is it the apocalypse? The answer to that is no, despite what everybody was saying on Twitter yesterday. Now, one guy's had a phenomenal call on this. Good job. But will this be the end of days? My guess is it's a chunky dip buying opportunity. Sure, people will come around to this. So first it was World War III, and then it's over by Sunday, and it's probably got another week of, mainly because of oil. Mainly because of oil. But government ineptitude, right? Letting everybody think that this was the end of the world when I think at the highest levels of power, they knew this was going to be over in a couple of days. Because right now, that's what it looks like. And even if that's not true, why was everyone selling crypto again? We play this game on the show. We go look back to like June 5th, or, we go back to April and go, why was everyone selling crypto? Plus, if you look at a crypto chart, can you find World War III on this move? Can you find the end of the world? If it was the end of the world, oil would have gone right to 100. We'll talk about that. The whole oil thing is still in play. So first it was World War III, and now it's totally over. Oil hangs in the balance. But at the end of the day, when you look at how governments handle these things, or when you look at what Michael Saylor said on the Jordan Peterson podcast, we will be discussing that, particularly if this situation does have one or two final scares left. All right. So don't go anywhere for that. All right. We have Astro Aha Lucky. New crypto creator here. What's up? Thank you for subscribing. Baby Whale, Bull Runner, welcome. Great Filibuster. Caroline Storyteller, a member for 6 months. Welcome. Felix Wolf Riot Star, hello. Right? Kat D, Ariana, welcome. Joe Robbins, a member for 6 months. Welcome, sir. GME, what's happening? Ariana, Hal Lopez from Portugal up late at night. Felix, is World War III in the room with us? Okay, well, I get the sense that if Israel apparently was able to walk in and do what they needed to do, it's not going to be World War III. That's not in anyone's interest. It never was. However, like I said, you do have a couple days next week. I don't think the fear is over, but I think crypto has demonstrated its prowess in the face of, frankly, hysterics. It literally was hysterics not 2 nights ago. Now it's over. I don't think that's true either, but we will go through it all, and I'm just going to dive right in. Sephro, good morning. Okay, here we go. Worst case scenario, according to Wall Street, is $130 for a barrel of oil. I got news for you. Just saying, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario for oil is that oil doubles. I saw this when I was 18 years old for the Gulf War, when oil went from 30 to 60 overnight. Because there was a credible threat to oil at that time, because nobody knew what one country invading the other would mean, particularly when we said we were going to get involved. In this particular case, if you have the destruction of oil facilities, 130 is not the worst case. Now, the reason that oil facilities getting hit is unmanageable is because it's not Iranian oil, it's Chinese oil, because that's who the Iranians sell it to. So, a lot of these guys got taken out last night. We'll talk about that. That's not the worst case. Now, the great news is oil couldn't even get to 80 last night. I said this before I was like looking at it. I was like, oil didn't go to 80. Everyone was like, oil's up 10%, 11%, 12%, 13%. I'm watching this on Twitter. It didn't get to 80. So if it didn't get to 80 last night at the start of World War III, why were we selling Bitcoin and Ethereum? Oil is your indicator. Now, I love this, and I believe this in every sense. This is not a world war. It's Michael Corleone from The Godfather taking out the heads of the families like in the movies. Just a brief reminder, the Orange Man got his start as a pretty boy frontman at Wall Street. So he would go to Wall Street on behalf of the Atlantic City mob that ran the casinos down at the beach in Jersey. So conveniently, it sounds like the Orange Man and BB got together and said, you know what? Let's find everyone who doesn't negotiate. Let's get their names and addresses. I don't know where they got them from. They either figured it out or they got it directly from the Iranians. And let's take out everybody who doesn't want to negotiate. You don't want to talk? No problem. You're sitting down eating your dinner? Boom. They just walked in and took all these people out. And the Orange Man is on the tape going, 2 months ago, I told you to negotiate. I told them what to do, but they couldn't get there. Now they have perhaps a second chance. As I always say on the show, you've been told. You've been told how they're going to do this, right? You don't want to negotiate? Okay, you got two choices. You can negotiate or you can die at the dinner table. Or you can live underground for the rest of your life. I think they're going to negotiate. They're going to negotiate. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Yeah, I know. Everyone talks a big game until their friend dies or their colleague dies. Then they change their mind. Okay? Now, just to show you about groupthink, here's like the poster boy for the left saying, who is the voice in the world that can negotiate some type of agreement and hold the moral authority? Perhaps it's the Chinese communists. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right. This is the mentality that actually starts the fear. These are the people who are like, oh my God, something terrible is happening. Now, I have my views on this, and I'm not really a big fan of the people who took this to a shooting war. But I think in terms of like the negotiation part, they are going to negotiate. They, as in the Iranians, they're going to negotiate. Okay. Say no to war. Say yes to Bitcoin. By the way, I'm going to get to it eventually. You're not going to believe what Michael Saylor had to say about war. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go straight into that because I think it just makes too much sense. So Michael Saylor goes on the Jordan Peterson podcast. And the first thing he says, not the first thing he says, but he says he studies the whole history of essentially money. And a lot of people don't know this, but, he was in the Air Force. His father was in the Air Force, and the Air Force paid for all kinds of degrees at MIT. Not a dumb guy. And he said traditionally, new forms of technology or new paradigms in general don't get introduced or, adopted by wide ranges of people, like old people, except in times of conflict. Conflict brings everybody out and goes, oh, wait a minute. You know what? Maybe I should adopt this new thing. Now, for him, his war or conflict realization was cough, cold, and flu. Now, mind you, this podcast where he talked about war as the true catalyst for mass adoption. In other words, everyone who was on the sidelines gets off the sidelines when they see conflict. Tim Waltz, everybody being super negative. I got something in here about food stamps being cut. Food stamps, tax on tips, tax on overtime out the window. Undoubtedly for the defense budget. Michael Saylor says, war or hardship brings mass adoption. So the longer they go on here, especially if they got a couple more scares left, do you realize that could actually bring Bitcoin adoption? And do you realize that this podcast was produced and published way before this started? It's right in the middle of the podcast. War can lead to currency failures, which do happen. And war generally is when people pick up the new paradigm. Now, I ask you this. How many people last night, when they were puking ETH at like a 2,400 handle, would have said, this is the dawn of mass adoption? No one. No one. Absolutely no one. So 1 minute, this is not a problem. Nick winds up being right. It is a problem. Then it's the end of the world. Everyone sells. And now, if crypto doesn't really go down, like they'll probably hit Bitcoin and stocks next week, especially if there's an oil problem. But like 7 days from now, if everybody goes, wow, this was World War III, or this scared me, I don't want to be in stocks anymore, they're going to flood into Bitcoin. They, as in the broader general public. Orange Man's media company registers for a Bitcoin Treasury effective immediately. So another guy who knows how the sausage gets made wants to turn around and sell whatever legacy asset he can to get his hands on Bitcoin. I mean, when they dropped Bitcoin from 110 to 102 on this, they dropped it hard. You were hearing cycle top stuff. Now they can still hit it one more time, but people, the whole world is down here. The whole world is down here. Israel will launch strikes against Iranian oil refineries and natural gas sites on the Persian Gulf if Iran decides to target Israeli population centers during their retaliation. Okay, so this is why next week it could get real interesting, because like I said, 130 is not the worst case scenario in oil. Okay, so somebody sent me this. This is apparently an Israeli jet refueling itself above the skies in Iran. So some guys did have a great call that, that this was going to come to a conflict. But when I look at this, it's almost like they let him walk in. The Iranians were either incredibly inept or they just walked in. They gave up their people. It's like some kind of intelligence failure or some type of theater. It's like a mob movie. They just, I don't know, somehow they just walked in. No one's asking these questions. And also no one is asking if this was theater that the religious leaders gave up to secular generals so that they could just have theater and then avoid the total destruction of their country. No one is talking about that. Everyone's assuming it's World War III. Okay, so they've attacked nuclear sites. There's radioactive contamination, supposedly. I thought all these major facilities were underground. Again, what you get told and what actually happened, let's just say they're divergent. They're divergent. The other thing that's amazing about this whole mob hit theory, which I like, is it's amazing how quickly the Iranians confirmed the casualty list. It's like if your senior leaders all got taken out all at once, would you admit that right away? I don't know. Maybe that's for propaganda purposes, but boy, they confirmed that kill list pretty quick. Pretty quick. They gave them up. Okay, so again, as with the Hezbollah pager attacks and all this stuff that, looks like it comes out of a Tom Clancy novel, Israel gets crowned like super geniuses on the military front for just coming in and do whatever they pretty much wanted to do. Everybody thought this was the end of the world, and it was the end of the Iranian leadership for part one. And I come back to this same thing. Why is everyone selling crypto off this news? I mean, if there was something to sell, it would be stonks, because everyone just got long and oil may reset itself at 80. Not that that's terrible for oil companies, conveniently. So if there's a problem, it's with stonks. And the funny thing for crypto is, if Michael Saylor's like world-changing moment is if there's a convulsion in stonks, that may be the end of patience with everybody over there, right? Because everybody was in, everybody was out. Now they're all back in again. And if they start taking heat on whatever they FOMO'd into at the top, why is everyone selling crypto? Everyone was like, this is the end of the world, and you can make an argument it was over in 2 days. Meanwhile, Fidelity is on the Solana ETF, right? Sorry, skipped around. Isreal is letting people know that they know where the top leaders live. These guys got a major decision as to whether they want to escalate or whether they want to negotiate now that their lives are on the line. Okay, so, Israeli air defenses are being overwhelmed. I understand they got Bibi out of the country, or Bibi on some sort of like flight off the landmass. Really scary for these people who live in these areas. And again, when it comes to the ideas of governments, why are they doing this again? Israel has the right to defend itself. Sure they do. Apparently they didn't need to. They walked right in and took all these people out. Where was the imminent threat to their security if that was their capability? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what they could do, why was this imminently necessary? And why would we sell crypto off that again? I keep asking this. Now, meanwhile, back at the crypto ranch, everybody is figuring out how to onboard normies. There's a movement going on, right? The movement underneath the surface was Circle, stablecoins, and crypto equities. That got ignored because of LA riots and all this geopolitical theater. That's going to come back into focus. The second thing that's coming back into focus is that Cynthia Loomis and Michael Saylor are getting some help on mass adoption of Bitcoin, thanks to Mike Novogratz from Galaxy Digital, that recently went public in the United States. So here's Mike without the sparkle sport jacket, right? Without the purple velvet, telling everyone that Bitcoin could 10x and go to 1 million. Now, Mike knows this. He's a hedge fund manager. But, gee, this looks awful packaged for retail investors to buy his company's stock and buy Bitcoin. Convenient, right? War brings in the people who don't think they have to adopt it. Noticing Mike looking like rather senior citizen-ish here, right? It's like, hey, Mike, what are you doing with that? You doing a little gardening, mowing the lawn? It's not exactly Novogratz fashion. As he says, a weak dollar is great for crypto. And he's beaming it out to everybody watching on CNBC, which is a largely geriatric audience. Now, you can make fun of the geriatric audience, but essentially they hold all the wealth in America. And they haven't been able to figure out how exactly to get involved in Bitcoin or in crypto in general. Like these ETFs, like if the Ethereum ETF becomes successful, meaning people go into it, Ethereum goes up, that paves the way for everything else. So now you have Cynthia Loomis, you have Michael Saylor, and you have Mike Novogratz. And you have war as a catalyst. According to Saylor, who does all this historical research, that war brings in mass adoption. Can you imagine? Who is talking about this conflict as a catalyst for mass adoption, especially with Mike out there beaming this out to senior citizens? The more fear there is, the harder they're coming into crypto. So if there's a fear trade next week and the market drops, the harder it drops, the harder it's going to come back. I don't think anyone's talking about it like this, honestly. Everyone's like, oh my God, I need to sell. Why? Why do you need to sell? To me, again, it feels like government ineptitude. It does. They're lying to you. Oh my God, this is an imminent threat. We have to take care of it right now. They just walked in and did whatever. Not exactly an imminent threat, is it? We are in a bear market in trust across the country and the world. This is underpinning the crypto rally. Bitcoin rose from the ashes in 2008 when the great financial crisis evaporated trust. Sadly, the world hasn't gotten it back. Stay long crypto. June 10th, noon. That was appropriate then. It's twice as appropriate now. I mean, do you trust what you're being told about this situation? First, you were told it was a nothing burger. Only one guy that I know of said it wasn't. One guy, Nick. That was it. Then everybody went from it wasn't a problem to it's the end of the world. Now, obviously, this is a very serious situation, particularly if you start taking out oil facilities. But does this make you trust sovereigns more? I mean, did Israel really need to go in there? I mean, clearly the two of them are enemies, that's for sure, right? The Iranians have a very storied past. Their view of the world is clear, not exactly a friendly regime, to say the least. But did we have to do this now? Do you trust these people? I mean, if you listen to Nick talk about this, he'll give you one view. You know, if you talk to people on the other side, they're like, yeah, these guys want to wipe us off the map, and they've said that. But again, do you trust any of these people? Even our guys. You know, they want to take out food stamps. This is the big, beautiful, fantastic bill. Now, part of this may be because people who have come here from overseas are consuming these benefits. But I'm going to tell you something about sovereigns, and I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why you need to buy Bitcoin. I know somebody who was a widow, who couldn't find a job, who was living on $1,000 a month. This was like in the middle of the inflation crisis. It still is, but like the inflation shock. She applied to get food stamps, and they wouldn't give it to her because, you know, they said it was only for people with children, basically. So she probably went hungry. Now they want to cut this. They want to cut tax on tips. They're going to use all this geopolitical stuff to rug everything that they told you, or at least Congress is going to try. And they're conveniently going to have lots of new stuff for defense and border. Do you believe everything that you are being told? This is a very important question in the time of war. Because a classic motto for war is that nothing is what it seems. That's a classic motto of the intelligence community. Nothing is what it seems. So if they want to rug food from poor people, do you want to own any paper currency? I mean, yes, dollar lower is consensus, and we can talk more about that. But this is more along the lines, particularly next week, right? You know, if there's more fear, why exactly are you selling crypto? Why? Why isn't it anything other than a crypto buying opportunity, particularly since this whole thing with stablecoins and IPOs has now hit the news? America's dollar dominance depends on stablecoins. Stablecoin companies buy treasuries. There's no bid for treasuries. Therefore, we need a massive proliferation of stablecoins. If there's a massive proliferation of stablecoins, those stablecoins eventually wind up in the crypto market. It's like crypto QE. Crypto QE, right? Let's get a bunch of bonds. Let's put them in the system. Let's use them as collateral, get money out there. And where's that money going? A lot of that money's going to wind up getting invested not only in crypto, but the banks, don't laugh, the banks are going to use the stable coins. They're going to go into Aave, and the banks are going to wind up a portal for DeFi. This has been a hallmark of the YouTube member area. It's been a core theme for a year, and now it's happening, right? Talk about somebody who's been right that no one listened to. That would be Toby. And of course, in Patreon, we have new stuff, a complete roadmap telling you when to buy ETH, which, believe it or not, was last night, when to go with the next breakout in Solana, and I'm sitting on a new report for the Patreon Platinum area, where I'm going to use movements in the planet Saturn to predict opening day for alt season. And I'm not saying another word about it. That report alone is worth the $88 a month price for the new platinum area, which is anywhere between $10 and $100 lower than what everyone else is charging for high quality research. So if you go to Patreon, right? And again, this is worth the wait. You go to Patreon, you click on collections. Okay. And then you see platinum research. The June window, right? 30-day tactical map with the twin stars of Solana and Ethereum. The bold Bitcoin revolution. I have the day that the mega Bitcoin parabolic should begin. The day. Based on what I would call Gann harmonics. And don't forget the Ethereum and altcoin super cycle, which still holds along with all your DeFi and AI picks and radical research on XRP. Now, that was a longer shill than normal. But when I saw this thing that's going in there later on this weekend about something going on with the planet Saturn and alt season, I'm like, I'm doing the long shill tonight. Because you know what? By the time I got to it, and I kind of knew this, people were going to be asking themselves, why am I selling crypto? Walmart, Amazon, mull stablecoins. I don't know what crypto exchange is going to carry Walmart dollars, considering the people who run Walmart not only were not nice to their employees for a long time, but were taking out ads in the paper advocating for social disorder lately. So I'll pass on that stable coin. Thank you. I don't need Walmart coin. I need Bitcoin. But, you know, if these guys want to create demand for treasuries, that's okay too, because what people don't realize is that's effectively money printing. That just enables the government to print more, to be honest. Bitcoin bounces back. Analysts warn of deeper pullback. That's always possible. But, okay, Anthony Pomplito getting a $750 million Bitcoin investment vehicle. Now, this is a big deal, and we covered some of this yesterday. Circle launches on XRP Ledger. So Circle decided that instead of trying to build their own layer one and move liquidity over that, they just decided to launch on existing layer ones. One of them happened to be XRP Ledger. This becomes marketing, right? Marketing for not only XRP Ledger, okay? Not only did they get marketing for XRP Ledger, but USDC traveling on the same layer one as Ripple stablecoin gives Ripple PR. Okay. Mojo says, did Binance just tweet a week ago, altcoin season starts on June 15th, bullish, not BS. You know what, folks? No one is looking at altcoins as alternative technology. No one. Crypto ownership isn't just Lambos and bros anymore. A surprising normalcy to crypto ownership. Now, I ask you this question. What happens when normies start acting like crypto bros? What happens when normies get a taste? What happens when they get a taste? What happens when people realize that they've thrown everything at this market? Like, first of all, on World War III, people were way more hysterical about the tariffs. You can't find World War III on a chart of what happened last night. Can't find it. And what happens when normies get a taste? And normies, I think, are already after Bitcoin Cash. Green Bitcoin, right? They're already after that. Bitcoin Cash has been going straight up for like 3 days to the point where it may be toppy. And if it's not, the whole thing's going to explode. What happens when normies get a taste? This is not a question people are asking. And of course, you know, like I said stable coins equal treasuries equals QE. Then I got something else in here about the massive crypto IPO season that's going to happen after they get done convulsing stocks. And if stocks don't convulse, you're going to have an even bigger crypto ICO season. Bitcoin could break 119, right? Data shows Bitcoin price gained at least 16% within a week of sharp oil rallies. Okay, well, that's interesting. All right. I'm kind of more in the camp of higher oil is negative for Bitcoin, statistically speaking, going back over time. Okay, higher gold, higher silver, lower dollar is good for ETH. I know I'm getting old waiting for it, and so are you. However, like last night in Ethereum went to 1,400. And then World War is declared, and you got this huge decline to 2,400. People, if you're in Ethereum or you wanted to buy Ethereum, the worst is already over. The worst is already over. So, I mean, why wouldn't you pick it up at 2,400? I thought it was going to 3,500. I was going to be like, it's going to go online. We're never going to see a dip. And you get this huge chunky, like, what was it, like 15, 20% from the local high? It's like I said to Toby, it's like, hey, what do you want to do about ETH? She's like, I just get it now. Just do it now. We watched it go to 1,400. Why do we care about this? By the way, if you want to know who had the call on this being kind of a nothing burger, because I pressed her, I said, hey, you know, there's this huge scenario out there for the end of the world. She's like, okay. You might want to check the YouTube member podcast, because you know what? She made that call when the first bombs were dropping. It was happening as we were talking. You go to this podcast and you listen to her lay it down for you. She laid it down for you right there. I mean, she's relatively new to live television compared to me and the Eagle King. So that was the first time that there was ever like a really big surprise, you know, on the air while you know, she's saying this is a nothing burger and it's happening. And she didn't change her mind. She hung in there like an absolute champion. Standing there going, you know what? No. Right here. Okay. Luckily, I had the Black Swan thumbnail in my back pocket. Don't be fooled by the looks, folks. Everybody was ready to puke it out, and she was like, no. Matter of fact, I can just tell you right now, I bought ETH last night. I was like, okay, great. Let's party on. Bitcoin is hope. He told you not to sell last night. He told you. And he told you on Jordan Peterson. I mean, I only got 3/4 of the way through this podcast when you see how this guy thinks, because really all you get is this kind of robotic Bitcoin's going to 13 million. And if you knew what I knew, this guy spent his whole childhood reading like sci-fi and fantasy novels. And then he started reading economic history. And then there's these stories about how he worked for years and years and years to build MicroStrategy, which was this little computer company that couldn't compete against anything else. And the guy worked for years, like 20 years. Just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and couldn't make it work. Then he's sitting on $500 million in cash, his company was, and Powell set rates to zero with 10% inflation. He's like, I'm not doing this. Then he started doing Bitcoin. Then he couldn't stop doing Bitcoin. And then years and years and years of sci-fi fantasy, history, economics, and technology. I can't get bearish at this. I listen to this and I'm like, oh my God. And people criticize Peterson for like chiming in every once in a while on the psychology. And even though Peterson was a little bit wordy, you just could get this feeling that you're pulling out this guy who gets this, like all the way around, especially when you think about the sci-fi thing. Because when I think sci-fi, I think altcoins. I think about all these little AI plays, because clearly all these bigger AI players don't have their act together yet. They don't. I mean, OpenAI is not solvent. They're trying to raise billions of dollars every other month. Big players were FOMOing into data centers. Big players are FOMOing into AI talent. And I heard something on Twitter today that the people who are FOMOing into the AI talent are doing so because their own coding is being done by another company's chatbot. There could be a decentralized aha in AI in crypto. No one's talking about that. No one was talking about the stable coins. No one was talking about the crypto IPOs. And what happens when they start talking about this all at the same time? All at the same time. Plus, I'm giving you the dates in Patreon Platinum. Like, I'm giving you the dates. Most likely the stuff starts like 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, and then on the date, it just accelerates massively. There's 3 dates. One of them is the eclipse. That you can look up online. But there's 2 other dates that come from GAN Harmonics that are just absolutely mind-boggling. And I got other backup work that I don't even know is going to make the final cut that basically proves the scarier this is, the bigger the rally. Like, I just have Toby says something, and then I go into GAN model and I get a whole bunch of math and they're saying the same thing. It's like I'm tapping into what she calls the collective intelligence. Wouldn't you know, the frogs want to buy Bitcoin. French Parliament wants Bitcoin mining to stabilize their power grid because I don't exactly know the science, but I know it's the case in Texas that somehow when Bitcoin mines they do power in, generate heat, and do power out, it's a stabilization factor for a power grid. Wouldn't you know, they found an excuse. I thought it wasn't green enough. And amazing how you have a totalitarian regime that will throw people in jail like the founder of Telegram. And don't forget, this is the same guys with an interesting depiction of the Last Supper for the last Olympic game opening ceremony, all of a sudden discovered Bitcoin. How about that? How about that? Bitcoin is turning the creeps into normal people. Hello. Steve J, as long as debt-based system exists, the infinite print will follow. Therefore, the BTC price as infinity. And Steve J is the Michael Saylor of DeFi because he is on this site, on this show all the time going, what about DeFi? He was on DeFi before Toby was on DeFi, and Toby was really early on DeFi. Steve was like visionary. Look at this. Bitcoin Layer 2. The second article about Bitcoin Layer 2s. By the way, ETH layer 2s await the entire world of finance. Meanwhile, if you get DeFi rolling on Bitcoin, Michael Saylor has already created a Bitcoin bond market. It's not a Bitcoin yield curve, but he basically became a one company Bitcoin bond market by issuing all these complex financial instruments where people can get 10% interest, and that'll be just fine as long as Bitcoin continues to go up. I mean, Bitcoin can't go down on tariffs. Bitcoin did go down on tariffs, but came right back. Bitcoin didn't go down on World War III. And even if Bitcoin goes down again next week, there's going to be people down there taking it. There is. Real estate is broken, and I'm fixing it with a new BTC real estate hybrid model, says Grant Cardone with 1.2 million followers. A lot of people jumping on this bandwagon, a lot of smart money getting involved, while crypto dimwits sell. What was the liquidation total last night? Like, $1 billion? GameStop shares tanked 22% after they're raising money for Bitcoin. So there's two things going on here, right? Because it's tough to figure out what is going on with this GameStop thing. Here's a funny idea that the street is somehow so short GameStop stock, like they sold more stock. They sold short more stock than exists. I know that's kind of mind-boggling, but these guys may have an infinite pipeline to buy Bitcoin. And even if the stock does drop 20%, there are short sellers who are not only taking the stock that they issue, but drooling over the 20% drops to try to cover shorts. These guys may be the next Bitcoin hedge fund, and I got it in here somewhere. There's a tweet. So you want to talk about mind-boggling? I was talking about crypto mergers and acquisitions for a while, about people taking over Bitcoin mining companies. What happens if companies start raising, like they raise money to buy Bitcoin? Then Bitcoin goes up. Then they use that money to take over other companies in their sector or other companies that also are buying Bitcoin. That the Bitcoin Treasury companies start buying each other. Oh my God. Right? In other words, that could create a frenzy at multiple levels. That creates companies going, oh my God, if we don't buy Bitcoin, somebody might not want to buy our company. We want people to buy our company. We want our stock price to go up a lot. That's a funny way of making Bitcoin a must at the Bitcoin Treasury level. Like, remember innovator, imitator, and idiot? Well, the innovator component of that may just be getting started, particularly if it's kind of like an automatic bump in valuation for the stock because of a takeover frenzy. Who's talking about that? Nobody. Somebody's talking about it because I saw it on Twitter, right? But, again. Now, for your XRP Kool-Aid of the day, there's guys going around saying that XRP could theoretically capture 14% of what goes on Swift. So every day, somebody's trying to put out a little bit of a tidbit about XRP to get XRP in the news. But this whole American-made crypto thing, don't forget, there could be cyber next week. Everyone's like, well, oil and production facilities and tanks and planes. Yeah, what about cyber next week? Has anyone thought about that? No one's thought about that. The Iranians are really good at cyber. Okay? So something can happen next week that can make everybody realize, oh my God, I got to do Bitcoin. Like if the lights go out or they can't get access to their money, it's not really hard to see the catalyst. It isn't. It is not hard to see the catalyst. Here we go. I like this. Our government is stupid. Bitcoin is going to $1 million. USD is done. Okay, as I like to trot out, and again, this is something that people are just not talking about. And I know that Grandpa brings this up and everyone blows it off. I get it. It doesn't, it's not immediately relevant and sexy. But when you look at the dollar, there was one big devaluation. There was two big devaluations. And everyone's trying to tell me, oh my God, this huge dollar down move that we've had, it's gigantic, it's epic. No, it's not. Not yet. Not yet. Right? This is not the big dollar down move. And if they're lying to you about the big, beautiful bill and tax on tips and overtime, and they're gonna smash food stamps, they're gonna smash Medicaid. You know, I know entitlements are a nightmare. I get it. But does this make you want to own the currency? I mean, does it make you want to own the currency? State of Texas, which doesn't have the type of problems Los Angeles does, put 5,000 National Guard troops. Just say in Texas, they don't wait for the president to have to put people on the streets. And the Texas National Guard has tanks, planes. It's literally like its own army. This is what we have to do on our streets, right? I haven't forgotten about that. This is going a lot lower. It needs to. Our goods need to be more competitive abroad. And if Powell won't lower rates, well, it's almost like they're creating a social disorder show just to get the dollar lower. This is going to happen. It's happening now. Okay, switching gears, a 4-hour Bitcoin chart. All right, what I'll say about technical analysis. So everyone wants to buy it after it's imploded, right? Everyone likes to buy the big panic wicks. Now, when you have stuff like this, right? So first it was everything was great. Now it's the end of the world. As this thing matures, my motto is beware the failed rally. You don't want to see, I mean, I don't know if this little bounce may not qualify as a failed rally. And this would be an absolutely wonderful reversal in Bitcoin. This is the 4-hour chart. This DeMark structure where it looks like it's just going to collapse and it reverses. You don't want to see any of these things where it goes straight up and then fails badly. This is okay for the moment. But over the weekend and in general, in these type of markets, right, where everybody goes to, it's going to 200, it's going to 0, and then everybody starts going back and forth, beware the failed rally. And if you don't get the failed rally, it's over. If you don't get the failed rally, it's over. You know, the only thing that can shake crypto, if it's copacetic, which right now it kind of is, if it's copacetic, the biggest problem for crypto is equities. I mean, ETH gets a little overextended and then unwinds just a simple 5 days of outperformance, makes a 9 bottom. What's the problem? I mean, if you take out 2484 and stay below it, yeah, it's a problem. But what's the problem? Right? Now, Solana, let's talk about this. So you go down, you have a 9 bottom. Now, when is a 9 bottom a bottom? Well, in a range. Blockchain Crusader is here. Please go follow him. The guy just won a trading competition. Guy's a Python programmer, been in crypto for a long time, went on a trading show and shocked the world and kicked ass. Big fan. Market goes down. Solana comes back to what was support. Now, when you have a 9 bottom, you don't want to see a failed rally. Because if you see a failed rally, this is a 4-hour chart, you basically get 3 days of the hammer. I would love to see Solana back above 150. If Solana is back above 150, you can kind of go. Now, of course, based on the Patreon Platinum research, some of which was also covered along with Toby's genius positions in the YouTube member area, we have the Solana tactical plan. So if you want to know when to buy Solana, we have all that set up for you. In the meantime, Solana has to get above 150. right? I want to see Solana above 150. I don't want to see any of this go up and then, fail stuff, because they could still hit reactors and people could still get emotional. They could. I'm not bearish. Like ETH, I want it. I just want it. I don't care. Now, with Bitcoin Cash, aka the Roger Ver meme coin, go Roger. You got yourself a 13 top here off this wild parabolic ascent. Again, people looking at Bitcoin Cash, at green Bitcoin. If this is not a top, like if this is not a tactical top in Bitcoin Cash, then maybe normies have discovered green Bitcoin. Like, ooh, look, this is $400. I can get 2. Bitcoin's 100,000. They may not know about getting pieces of Bitcoin. They may want to be whole coiners in Bitcoin Cash. And this has been going on for a couple of days. Steve J says Maker is moving, right? You go to LuxAlgo, couple things to note. This is very typical of quant models. So you had a big move up and quant models jump on that. That's standard for quant models. And then usually, per a guy who I got educated on this from, you get a dip. Like the quant signal comes out, then you get a dip, and the quant system has not reversed in Bitcoin. I don't know what happened in ETH. Let's find out. Yeah. So you got this bullish signal in ETH, and the model hasn't chickened out yet. What's the problem? That's what LuxAlgo is telling you, at least right now. And by the way, it was the 200-day moving average in ETH where it held. And I don't think XRP went back to its 200-day moving average. What's the problem? Like, can you find World War III on this chart? I can't. Like, if you showed this chart to a normal person, they would say in XRP that this was World War III in April. What's the problem, right? And if they scare everyone next week, frankly, if they're scary out there, right? This is the scary. That's the scary right there. Okay? That's the scary. 6,000 S&P, everybody in, everybody out, everybody back in again, everybody back out, possibly. Speaking of everybody back out, let's go to the 89-minute chart of LuxAlgo on Ethereum. Look at this. You have, again, this is just tactical now. This is just tactical. ETH, 89-minute. So this is very short term, okay? First of all, can't get to the discount zone. You have red on red. This is like puking like you don't know. Everybody who FOMO'd in at 2,400 down here puked it at 2,400. No one wanted to stick around. Everyone just went, bleh. Meanwhile, you have every reversal signal, signals and overlays, like every signal. And then, then it's coming in and getting long on a tactical basis. Now, again, there's resistance up top. This is not over in a day. Okay. This is not a rack. It's not over in a day. Okay. It's not the end of the world, but it's not over in a day. But why are we selling ETH? Why are we doing that? You know what I told people? It's like, look, in Patreon, in this group, we focused on big picture portfolio. We have small caps in the YouTube member area. And we, in both groups, Patreon and YouTube, we have the dates to buy the micro caps. Conveniently published, created before this war situation. We have a complete roadmap for small caps. We have a roadmap. We have momentum. We have somebody with clairvoyant abilities who's also an analyst. We have GAN work. We have TA, the live show, to help anybody out there that's got no money. But if you got money, check out the YouTube member area. Check out Patreon for the best and cheapest GAN stuff out there. Do you know GAN software is like $4,000 a year? I'm getting you massive GAN work that I never thought I'd be able to do until AI came along for not a lot of money. And if you want to do trading in a Discord thing, there's a couple guys I know, but Blockchain Crusader's on the stream, so go check him out. He's a great guy. He is. He's a great guy. And his TikTok stuff is pretty good too if you got no money. It is. It's good. So, again, no affiliation with that. Check him out. Definitely appreciate you supporting our channel through Patreon and the YouTube member area because our members are printing. And I bought Ethereum yesterday. I'm like, I'm not going to wait for it to go to zero. If it goes to zero, I'll double up. Okay. So you can do charts until you're blue in the face. The one chart that matters, I forgot to show you the chart that matters. The chart that matters is oil, right? It really is. It's going to be your leading indicator for everything, right? I mean, oil has the best intelligence in the world, oil companies. Now, Toby did note, surprisingly, that I'm sure there's a lot of oil companies that are glad oil is no longer at 50 because that was a major problem for them. Very convenient how we have a little, big, beautiful bill with lots of military and borders. Then we have social disorder. Then we have something that gooses oil prices. And then they're cutting food and medicine and tips. And yeah, okay. Crypto forever. If oil does not take out the premium zone at 80, which is also this is where oil collapsed from when the Orange Man got elected. If oil can't take above 80, this is a nothing burger. And now if oil does take out 80, you're going to have your big scare, right? Or if oil presses 80. Still, end of the world, oil got sold so far. If oil doesn't take out 80, you have your answer. You have your one chart market update. Okay, folks. Why am I selling crypto? Why am I panicking? I know your bags are down. And I think the final word is this. Everybody knows that this market's going up in the crypto world. Everybody understands why, but everyone's getting frustrated. They see the big institutional flows, but the market doesn't go up. That's because altcoins don't have what I call sponsorship yet. They don't have a natural organic buyer like Bitcoin does, ETH does, Solana does, XRP probably does too, but the rest of the market doesn't. This conflict will change that. You can take that to the bank. We will see you soon.